Yeah, Rokfor started three years ago, basically. More or less, it's a website to collect data on it. So I guess everybody of you knows how this kind of content manager looks. It's a self-developed thing, but we don't want to focus too much now on the website. We developed it by ourselves because then we have everything under control and we can do whatever we want, and it's optimized to store data for print matter, basically for books, for example. It's optimized to create chapters and issues. If you want to print like periodicals, then you can open up just a new issue of the same project. But still, I mean, it's a self-developed thing, so it's just under strong development all the time. The more interesting thing, development-wise, is basically not the input side, but the output side. That means we have to program for every project. We so far did, and we have to do. We've programmed output modules, which generates then the graphics. And as you can see here, they are like kind of strange introduction to the art. What? No, it's a little bit abstract, these two images, but it shows exactly my personal problem of creating output modules. Both are the same situation. One, I guess, in India, and the other one maybe in Germany or wherever. Maybe also in Italy, since Italy is part of the EU. When I'm confronted with graphic design as a programmer, I have a situation like on the left side, when Rafi comes to me and has an idea of something has to look, then it's kind of a solution, often which is from a logical point of view quite hard to break down to hard facts. As a computer programmer, I like the right side. I like clear situations, a start and an end point. I like simple steps, basically, and I like objects as the cars on the right side, which are pretty stupid because they start and stop when it's green and red. And on the left side, it's an extremely intelligent situation because every car on the left side has its own basically logic, and so the art basically is do a kind of transformation from the left to the right side, and not losing everything which is emotional or everything which is kind of beautiful. That's my everyday struggle in this project. So another in the movie. The narrator talks about soul elite. It's just for this purpose that this kind of conceptual art is also kind of algorithm driven. And you can see here, this kind of description up is exactly what happens below. And for me, it's an ideal situation when the graphic designer can describe the graphic and I can just transform it. To go on with the idea of creating algorithms which print out graphic design, we have a little preview of a book we are now working on. It's not finished, so it might change in some details, but it's a as you can see, our books are heavy text-based. That's maybe I guess so far the case that we just have projects, which are mainly based upon text collections. This one here, it's a reader about the topic of bibliomania. It's going to be an exhibition in autumn in Zurich, and it's like a collection of short and long texts about maniac, book maniacs and maniac consumption of books, up to burning books or loving books, you know. So we have kind of different emotional relations towards the book, or different strong levels of the maniacs. And the book is like sorted that it starts with less strong and manic text and ends up in the really like with like book burning and really strong maniacs. And this idea is kind of included into the whole design. That means the book begins very strong layout according to a grid, and more basically this emotional level raises, the layout gets more and more destructed. The size of the font size is dependent on how important a text is for the topic. Is it more like a central text or more like a peripheral text? And so we have this is maybe a screen which is then more towards the end, and the texts are also like starting to float around and wrap around themselves more maniac, basically the character of the book is. And
you spoke about text, and you are soon going to do the first image book. I'm very curious how is that turning out really. I've got no clue so far, anyway, to that. So we're looking forward to get in touch with materials and not only text and also as well images. What I want to say to that project is like also something about about the visual intention. For me as a graphic designer, if you are talking about possible algorithms, if you are talking about also the way to transform a graphical idea into code, actually, this is for me especially interesting for that kind of project that is all about collecting and collection. Collection is a big topic in terms of bibliomania. And I've got my own story as well to that book, and I always wish to have a book which is starting really in an order tray and then ending up in a mess somehow. Not in an unreadable mess, as you can see here. I mean, this is probably 135 is the page number of an amount of probably 200. So it's a bit more than the middle of the book. And just to show him somehow how typically can develop a collection. And in our opinion, a collection has its starting point at the moment where you decide to buy a bookshelf, and then you are very driven by putting all the books very properly in the bookshelf until the bookshelf is full and the books start into lying on the table or on the floor or wherever. And this is a little bit the design intention of the book, having like this kind of development through the layout from the beginning to the end, from order to disorder, somehow. And this is really relaxes me as a designer, relaxes me a lot, because I'm not have to pointing out a single page or a spread or just a whole chapter of a book. I try to believe the book and the nature of the book as itself, more than pointing out little details.
Yeah. After such course, I just keep it a little bit to the fact that, you know, here on this layout you can see how computers sometimes decide what piece of text should be put where. The blue parts are basically regions on the page where the algorithm allows other texts to flow around. And on the left side, the red part is an area which would be nice if text would flow around, but it's not allowed because it would be too small for the size of the characters in the small part below. So the algorithm cancels out the possibility of floating around there and put the text down. On the right side you have another situation. It's like a green part which is crossed out. This would be actually totally okay to float around, but since the layout engine decides that this small part is a multi-column area, it's too small for the second column, so this part is also cancelled out. When we first talked about the book, we developed this idea that it would be that was what Rafi said before. It would be nice to have this kind of Tetris-like layout where, you know, first you start and everything fits together, and you end up with really, you know, problems to put the pieces together. And basically we talked about fonts and font sizes, or that was in that case your work, you know, like define rules and think of basic visual look, and then define rules which fonts would be maybe possible to scale between this and that font size, and which column widths are still okay, and from which point it's just too small. And then I try to, you know, and then we pass like the ball from each next to each other, and you define basically all those rules, and I try to figure out how could you approach all these problems with an algorithm that follows the visual idea the best, basically. So it's a controlled randomness in a way. It's also a try and error thing. I mean, we start to work, maybe sometimes we can't go on, and then we have to try and leave things. It's like always, there's no basic principle. It's like always invent new. That's to describe basically what we do, what our work is, and in the next, basically to broaden a little bit, we just talk about some things we already did, some cases where we started, and some books that lay around here.
Yes, right. From the most recent project to one of the first project, we were commissioned by a school, actually also a design school in Bern, to, in the first step, look over all the medias they're producing. They produced at the time many different medias like posters, postcards, little one, bigger one, and magazines and everything. Just quite a lot, a big bunch of different medias. And marketing department, of course, said, yeah, we have to somehow reduce the amount of medias we are communicating to school at all. And we wanted to have something like a central media to communicate our activities. And we proposed then to having this kind of little diary. In German it's called Veranstaltungskalender. And it is actually the first moment Urs started developing a software which can be used by all the teachers, by all the secretaries, by many people of the school. Just to to collect the data into a database. And Urs set up this database, and I have developed in the meantime the aesthetics of the calendar, and we are ended up at the school that, as I said, the staff actually collected all the data, and just by printing out, by pushing somehow the PDF printing button at the end of the database, it came out different leaves which announcing different events from school.
Which was quite funny, because first it was really thought as a very practical approach to optimizing processes, but we were quite, there were like unknown side effects, because the algorithm scaled the titles of all the events according to the length of the title, which was quite a funny side effect, because the people who were thinking of, oh wow, I have a really interesting event and I want to put this one with a very long and very good title into this schedule, they were kind of backfiring a little bit, because it was scaled down to a very small font. So the winners were those who keep themselves short. And that sometimes led to the situations that the people were thinking about, really new titles, short titles for their events, which we didn't think of, but which was kind of a nice side effect of having kind of a strict generator. We did that was an experimental thing for the design prize last year. It was the edition Rokfor. It was basically, we always said that we really try to be practical. We really try to not talk too much about, generative design, whatever. We really try to produce stuff. So we thought, since our first big book was then still just in print and not ready for the competition, we just thought, okay, we tried to produce 24 books in 2 weeks, as fast as we can, the three of us. Of course, it's not the most intelligent content, because, we're just programmers, graphic designers, and editors, and not geniuses. And so everybody of us had his own approach to generate content, and we set up like a very strict layout according to the school, how you say, Deutsch, Französisch, at school. There's various subjects you have, at the gymnasium in Switzerland. So I was more like into, since I'm not a writer, I was more like into programming content for the books, like programming kind of a worm, which was downloading automatically music, biographies of MySpace profiles, and filling, up the music reader. I just press stop when it reached 500 pages, because that would go on forever and ever. And but it's mostly just, a lot of content is just copy pasted from the net, or you had the religion is like voice recognition of some American kind of hardcore religious podcasts, which are then without dots and points, just like a really long sermon. You did chemics, like all the side effects of views, I guess. But anyway, the focus was not on the content. The focus was on, we have a machine, and we really try to do something within a short period of time, without neglecting design totally. but it's of course not really a serious work, but it could be maybe a starting point for some pocket books.
I mean, yes, there was also a kind of intention, or let's say at least an idea. We're not giving up at the time totally, but we also realized, I mean, that was really like in a short period, it was an intensive period. And Urs had his own way to generate content. I'm more like into copy pasting things and try to control something as a graphic designer, of course. And yeah, but still, as Urs said, I mean, Rokfor was there used for being a very fast and very efficient tool. Whilst at this calendar for School of Art in Bern, was Rokfor more into optimizing process and giving people access to content, which is also speeding up the process somehow, because the calendar, me as a designer, I had at the end just to control all the files, and it took us for production of a whole calendar about a week or so. I mean, it's not comparable if you set off this thing with other media or doing it by hand.
So